Yeah. So, my name is Mr. Vokin. Welcome back to World History, grade 12. And today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite topics to talk about, which is Arete. So, what is Arete? Arete is an ancient Greek word and concept. So, what does the word mean? Well, if you directly translate it, it means honor. But as many things happen with anybody here who speaks, is anybody here speaking another language? No? Anyone? Anyone? Bueller? All right. So, with speaking another language, as I'm sure you can understand, sometimes translating words from one language to another, you sort of lose a lot of the nuance. And that's what happened with Arete, is that, yes, if you directly translate it, it does mean honor, but more accurately, it means the pursuit of excellence and being the best that you can be at what you do. And another very important part of it, which is very operative for today, is it's not just to do it, you got to do it and be remembered for it. Now, Arete applies to everybody in ancient Greek society. That means both women and men. Now, that is two separate things, though. So, when it comes to women and men, there was a lot of historical sexism, right? And for men, it was to go out, fight, bring back that honor. And for women, and there is actually a great quote, and I don't mean it that what he's saying is great, it's a great example of this concept, is that a Athenian philosopher known as Pericles, during a war between Athens and Sparta, said that he was giving this funeral eulogy for a bunch of Athenian soldiers, and at this funeral, he thought he should take the time to say that that Arete for women is to not be spoken of, not to be remembered, and to be a homemaker. So because of that, and because that was him going, yeah, this is great, guys. Women, just shut up and go home. That's also a reason that we don't have a lot of evidence and understanding of what ancient Greek home life or ancient life for women in Greece was like, because societally, they were told to shut up and not talk about it, so we don't have a lot of stuff about that. Another great example is, if you're all familiar with the ancient poet Sappho, we originally thought Sappho was a man at first. We then figured out, oh, Sappho was actually a woman, and that's another reason we don't have full poems by Sappho. We just have fragments, is because she was a woman, we didn't want to save everything from that. Arete can also vary from what polis you're from. Now, what is a polis? A polis is an ancient Greek city-state. There's two that I'm sure you guys know of. Can we name them? Athens, very good. Anyone else? Sparta, very good. Now, for Athens and Sparta, these are two very different groups who have two very different ideas of how to attain Arete. Now, I'm going to take a quick step back to make sure, I want to check in and make sure you guys are understanding what I'm saying. Can you guys think of what a modern equivalent of Arete would be? It is to not only do the thing, but do the thing and be remembered for it.
Like a title and a job, for example.
Okay, good. We're close. Anybody else?
I didn't hear what she said.
She said a job or a title.
Yeah, like a job title.
How about
Let's think a bit more modern, a bit more internet age, if you will.
like influencers on social media?
Influencers, clout. Arete is basically ancient clout, and I'm not kidding. Now, what this ancient clout for both of these polis would be is very different. So for Athens, you have democracy, oral tradition, debate. You have trade. They were a huge trade hub. They had one of the largest navies in ancient Greece. Then you have Sparta, and they are all about war, martial culture. They had a lot of slaves. They were really into the slavery, and all about honor. Now, you might think that's a bit redundant, but they pursued this hard, very hard, and you're going to see in just a little bit what I mean by that. Now, we're going to get into what I think is one of the best pieces of evidence to explain why Arete was so important and how it affected the actions of the ancient Greeks. Because when you ask, say, a military historian why a certain cultural group did something, they're going to approach it from that military angle. You ask a agricultural historian, they're going to approach it from the agricultural angle. I think that there are other factors that feed into those when it comes to cultural history. To understand what goes into a group's culture, what their beliefs are, what they hold to be true. Arete is a great example of that. Religion, socioeconomic status, that is what drives them to then make those decisions in the military and make those decisions in agriculture. And that's why today we're going to talk about the Battle of Thermopylae. Now, you are actually probably familiar with the Battle of Thermopylae and you don't even know it. Has anybody heard of the movie 300? We got one. All right. So the movie 300 is about the Battle of Thermopylae, and it's called 300 because there was 300 Spartans. Now, I'm here to tell you that is unequivocally wrong. That is absolutely wrong. They said it was 300. It was more like 7,000. Now, the reason that they claim it to be 300 is because of Arete. Now, this is during the Greco-Persian War, and at the time, there was something called the Delian League. This was an allyship of many different Greek city-states, many polises, right? And that was headed by Athens and Sparta. They were the two big groups in that. Now, they knew that Persia was both approaching from land and from sea. And the Persian Empire at the time spanned from modern-day Iran all the way down into a little bit of Saudi Arabia, Syria, Jordan, Lebanon, Israel, Palestine. That whole area was huge, right? Then you got Greece over here in the corner. So tiny. And so the Athenians took over the naval side of the engagement because, like I mentioned earlier, with trade, they have a huge navy. And Sparta, being one of the largest martial cultures and one of the ones with the most prowess, took over the land part of that invasion. Now, one thing I didn't mention about Sparta, Athens is democracy, which means there are electors who are voted for by the citizenry. The citizenry was only adult men over the age of 20. But the citizenry nonetheless. And Sparta was what is called a diarchy. So you've heard of a monarchy where you have a king, right? Diarchy, you have two of them. One was the king for at home in Sparta, ruling over Sparta. The second one was the one that would go out and conquer. And sometimes they would flip-flop, it's like, I need to take a break, I need to sit down for a minute, I'm gonna tap you in, right? That's how it would work. So they sent one of their diarchs, Leonidas, out to deal with this issue with the Persians. Now, he was also backed up by several other city-states, one of them being Thebes. I would consider, and this is a controversial opinion, that Thebes is what I would say is the big three of ancient Greece. You have Athens, you have Sparta. That everybody knows about Athens and Sparta. That's the only stuff we talk about in like elementary, middle, high school. The only ones we talk about. Thebes, I would say, is also one of those big players. They were much farther north and had to deal with Macedonia a lot more. They're also the reason that we have Alexander the Great, but that's a story for another time. They also had a great military. And so Sparta came to Thermopylae. Now, this is a cutaway diagram of what Thermopylae looked like. It was this very narrow passageway along a sheer cliff going down with a sheer cliff going up. So it was very compact, and that was really the only convenient way to get from the Persian Empire into Greece by land. Otherwise, you're going through all of these different mountains, having to get over rivers, and it's taken too much. And you're dealing with a Persian army of 120,000 to possibly 300,000, and you got to get through this itty bitty little space that could probably be maybe about the width of this room. And the Spartans, led by Leonidas, formed a phalanx. I love phalanxes. This is one of my few favorite things. It's when you have your shield in one hand, you have your spear in the other. So you hold your shield like this, you're only covering about half of your body. so that you have more room to operate the said spear. But this whole side of your body isn't covered. So what do? You put a guy right next to you where he has his other half of the shield covering this side of your body, which leaves the weakest side of the phalanx all the way on the right, where you have one guy that isn't covered on one side. But, as I mentioned, he's going to be all the way over here, so he has bigger problems to worry about. So they held this phalanx there for a while. But I'd like to take a brief respite to go back to talking about Arete and why this battle's important. Because I said they were backed up by Thebes and a couple other city-states. What they did was they sent out some scouts. They found where they wanted to have the battle, here at Thermopylae, and they sent out scouts to see how far away the Persian army was. They saw the Persian army was about 3 days away, and they went, all right, guys, thank you for coming. That was great. Everybody else can head home. Us Spartans are going to take care of it. It's like, no, guy, we're here to fend off an entire Persian army by land. What? And it's like, we got this. Don't worry about it. And so they sent them home, but they were like, hey, by the way, we're probably going to die. So just write something about that. And that's where Arete comes into, because it is not just to do the thing, it's to be remembered for it. And this is the epitaph of Simonides, which, as Reed said, Simonides on the Lacedaemonian dead at Plataea. Lacedaemia is what the area of Sparta was called, because their symbol is the lambda. So Lacedaemonian, you know what I mean. At Plataea, these men, having set a crown of imperishable glory on their own land, were folded in a dark cloud of death. Yet being dead, they have not died, since from on high their excellence raises them gloriously out of the house of Hades. So what they did at the Battle of Thermopylae is that they held off this Persian offensive for 3 days. Just 7,000 men, not 300, 7,000 men for 3 days against more than triple, quadruple their numbers. At the smallest number, they held them off for that long. And that's also where we get into a little bit of my favorite thing about ancient warfare, is that in ancient warfare, you would know, okay, their city's over here, my city's over here, we're gonna march in a straight line until we find them, and then when we find them, that's where we're gonna fight. There wasn't a lot of this modern tactics, right? And then they would find each other on a field, and they would see them across the field, and they'd be like, hey, that's the enemy. And then the enemy would be like, hey, that's the enemy. And they would stand there, and what they would do is they would shout insults at each other until they got mad enough to fight. So they would send out some of their best jokesters with some of their best yo mama jokes, and they would just hurl them at each other until they got mad enough to fight. And there's another great example of this at Thermopylae. There's 2 of them. There is the very famous Come and Take Them, because the Persians sent an envoy out to Leonidas, and they're like, you're so outnumbered, what are you going to do? Just lay down your spears and give up. And Leonidas says, come and take them. Come on, dude, I bet you won't. Come and take them. And so that's where the come and take it quote comes from. You then have a second envoy come out, and Leonidas sends his best guy out to go and reply to him. And at this point, the Persians are fed up. They're done with this. And they're like, you know what? We have so many archers, we're going to shoot so many arrows at you that it's going to black out the sun with how many arrows we're going to shoot at you. And the Spartan guy, he was cool as a cucumber. He's just relaxing. And he looks at him and he goes, all right, you going to black out the sun? We'll just fight in the shade. I can do this all day. And they did, until they fought to the last man and died. And then that's where Simonides, round about 300 years later, came about and put down this epitaph to remember them. Because, as I've said, it's not just to do the thing, it's to be remembered for it. You could say you went out and fought a lion. Did anybody else see that you fought a lion? No. So you could be lying. We don't know that. Arete is about achieving excellence in oneself, excellence, and this honor not only goes to you, it goes to your family. It goes to your polis, it goes to Sparta, it goes to Athens. Because these deeds are not just your own, you can be very highly recognized for them, like Leonidas was. But it also goes to your people and your home, and that's why it's so important to them. So to insult one's arete was one of the biggest faux pas you could ever have, because they went out and did the thing, and you're questioning that? Oh, no. So arete, in closing, is the attainment of honor for the betterment of oneself in social standing, the betterment of your family, and the betterment of your people because of the actions that you did. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, good job.